It's time for Coffee Talk at Mill Cove Coffee with Life Radio. We are sitting down for coffee with the heart of our community, the people who step outside the box and help make a difference. Let's listen in and find out what's going on behind the scenes here at Miramichi.
I'm from Gal. We're here with Life Radio. We're here with Leon Kramer today. Is it Kramer?
Kramer, that's it.
We're going to, he's doing a book signing down at Mill Cove Coffee, and we're going to talk about his new book and why he wrote it. But first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, Leon.
Well, I've been a pastor for 60 years, so that's a long time. I was ordained here in the Miramichi on May the 23rd, 1959, just about the same time as the Eskimonac disaster. And my father was a fisherman, but he didn't fish that far away. So, but I was, after I was ordained a priest, they sent me to St. John, the cathedral parish. I had never been in St. John before, so all of a sudden I'm here in this great big church in the middle of a city I know very little about, and so I had to adjust very quickly to life in the city and to meeting people there.
So were you from here originally?
Yeah, born and brought up here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and did some teaching for 1 year, did a stint in the army, and then decided to study for the priesthood.
So it was like a calling kind of thing.
Yeah,
Calling.
certainly from within my heart. And it wasn't anybody exterior, but I had the good luck to meet different priests whom I admired, such as the gentleman I told you about, Father Murdoch, who was a chaplain in the First World War, went over with the soldiers and come back and lived here, and I was a friend of his. And then Monsignor Hickey, who had gone over in the Second World War and was chaplain of the North Shore Regiment. And I used to meet with him once a week like a spiritual director. So I had good instruction, I had good men that I looked up to and gave me admiration.
When you were younger, did you write too? Write books or
No,
stories or anything?
no.
When did that take over that you decided you wanted to write down?
I was probably in the middle of my life, although I found out that I did enjoy writing. I made the habit of if I had to speak on Sunday, I would always write out what I was going to say, and then I would summarize it or make it so it wasn't too long. But I always knew what I was going to say in the beginning, and I always knew what I was going to end with. So if children started crying or somebody got up and started shouting, I'd know when to call it quits. So I was, and then I found out I enjoyed writing. So I wrote every week, mostly as regards speaking on Sunday, you know, and or speaking at funerals of people that I knew. But I also had a great love for reading. So
So outside of the Bible,
I
obviously read the Bible. What kind of books do you like, or what kind of?
I was told many years ago, if you want to be a good Christian, read the bestsellers. I didn't know what that man meant at that time, but I found that out, that if you read the bestsellers, you know what's happening in the world today. In fact, sometimes you'll know it before the rest of the world knows.
Wow.
Because they really are. Those people who write best-selling novels are usually a step or two ahead of the rest of us, the rest of the world. So I've always read bestsellers, and I cried and cried and cried when books burned down from this building right here, because now you got to go and now you got to get your bestsellers on Kindle.
Yeah.
And who wants to read? You know, when you're traveling, it's good to have a Kindle.
Yeah.
But if you're home in the evening and you're resting, you want to read. There's
Nothing
nothing
like a real
having
book and turning
in
the
your
pages.
hand.
No.
Oh,
Sure.
I love it. So yes, I read a lot.
So, did you do a lot of traveling to inspire writing?
Yeah, well, no, I did and I didn't. I did have the good fortune to be able to go at any time that somebody said that there's a chance of going to take in a conference that would explain something new about the church or what's happening in the world as regards to the church. Every chance I had, I took in one of those, whether it was to Chicago or San Francisco or Toronto. I think I went to Toronto 2 different times to study. So when I had the chance, when they said there's a conference going on that's going to explain something as regard to church today, I would always ask to go. So I went, and I had the good fortune not only to go to the Vatican in Rome, Italy, but I had the good fortune, which was unlike any other good fortune, to go and spend the summer in the Holy Land. It was magnificent. Dr. Wesley Wade, a good Baptist preacher from the South, was the head of the group, but he always would ask me to go with him to the Catholic churches where the Franciscans are the only ones that are allowed there because of St. Francis's time in the Holy Land. And so the churches are run by the Franciscans. So I would be asked to go by Wesley Wade to set up. We were going to have church there that day. So that was, I took a lot of trips, but that was the best trip of all.
I've always wanted to go to the Holy Land, but I've always wondered, because of the religion there, you know, the Jewish religion and the different religions there, how Christianity fares when they're there. Like,
it's very difficult.
is it?
Very difficult, because when I was there, 14% of Israel, of the nation Israel, was Christian. That included all the Christian religions. You know, the Catholics and the Protestants and the Coptics and the Melkites and the foreign, the Eastern religions, they all had to cooperate with one another in order to withstand the pressure, not of Judaism as a religion, but to try to counteract Israel becoming a nation that where people don't go to the temple as much as they should or used to. They have a lot of kibbutzes, you know, where people go to, and they try to remain faithful to the Old Testament, you know, to the Jewish Bible, the Hebrew Bible. But the new people in Israel, I saw no sign of them at all being faithful to the Hebrew religion. Very, very few go to the synagogue.
Yeah.
The only fellows that go are the ones with the little ringlets, you know, who are studying to be rabbis. But I saw very, very few people. So it's a sad situation, because now in Israel we're only 4% of the population. That's all Christians together. All Christians together, and we only make up 4% of the population.
Wow.
So anytime they want to say, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Like
They have the
going
majority.
to Bethlehem.
Yeah.
Everybody went to Bethlehem, and the Christians were there every year. Now you have to beg through the army, through the Israeli army, to get permission. You've got to have that slip of paper. You're not allowed into Bethlehem.
Really?
I didn't know that. No, you can't.
But yet we're such avid supporters of Israel. It's odd.
You got to have the support of Israel.
No, but I mean Canada, United States,
Yeah.
which is more Christian nation.
Yes.
Supports Israel wholeheartedly. I would have never thought we were only 4%.
That's all we are.
Wow.
And that's all the Christians. When you're over there, you better be good to your neighbors who are Christian.
Wow.
Because that's the only way you have of surviving, you know. I mean, what has happened with Israel, the land has become their symbol of their God. You know.
Okay.
This is our land, and you will never take it from us again. And so their land, Israel, which
So
was
it's live or die kind of.
only made a nation in 1947. You know, they said, no, we'll die. Every one of us will die before you'll ever take this land from us again.
So the battle between Israel and Palestine, where does the church sit in that whole aspect? On which side? How do we fall on that?
Well, it's not, you can't say that out loud.
Oh, you can't.
You know that you're in favor of Palestine and having a Palestinian state of some kind.
Right.
Because what happened with Hamas, it would happen anywhere. We never heard tell of Hamas before. When I was there was no Hamas there. You know, but the Hebrews, the Arabs, you know, they had their own little communities, and they got along with Israel quite fine. But of course, every once in a while there'd be a fight. So this group who called themselves Hamas, they said, you side with us, and we'll help you. We'll take care of those Jewish people when they come over here, and they think they're going to run us into the ground. We'll fight for you. So then the Arabs said, oh, that's good. You'll be our fighting wing. That was the worst mistake the Arabs ever made, to identify as Hamas, because all of a sudden America condemned Hamas as an organization that is not to be trusted, you know, that is a terrorist organization. And Canada followed. Canada calls Hamas a terrorist organization. And they're the ones that the Arabs, the Christian Arabs, identified with. So what are you going to do? You know, they don't stand a chance at all. They don't have any power whatsoever in Israel, the Christian communities. They just have to hope and beg and hope that.
Hard world.
Yeah. So I mean, if you went over there, you could go as a tourist.
Yeah.
And you'd be protected, because in Israel, everybody has to belong, has to belong to the army when they're 18, both men and women.
Oh, really?
Men and women. As soon as you're 18, you put that rifle on your shoulder, and when you go out in the date at night, you have the rifle in this hand and the girl on the other. And you see that all every Friday and Saturday. You know, the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's what you see when young people are off. They all have to carry their rifle with them.
So they're constantly in fear of war all the time.
Constantly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hard way to live, considering it's the Holy Land.
Yeah.
You think about it.
But they're surrounded by Arab communities. They're surrounded. And those Arab communities have never said, we recognize Israel as a separate state. The Arabs have never said that. So that's why Israel has to remain very powerful and gets all the help they can from the United States as regards jets and bombs and ammunition. So they remain strong, and certainly the United States favors them to be a strong right arm of America, you know, in the Middle East. So then they are. But still, you can go there as a tourist and have a very nice time. You know, I mean, as long as you don't look at the military side of it, and you can go there and you can say, I want to go and walk where Jesus walked.
And you can do that?
You can do that.
Now your book, when did you start writing this book? How long ago was it?
I started writing that book 2 years ago, and started jotting down things. And
so what's the premise behind it? Like, what's the?
Well, I wanted. People would often say to me, "Why don't you write a story about your life?" Perhaps they heard me talking, or perhaps I'd written something for the local paper, and they would say, "Well, we like the way you write. Why don't you write the story of your life?" And I would say, "Well, what's different about my life?" Well, the only thing different about my life is that I like to meet people. I like to talk to people, and people seem to like to talk to me. You know, I mean, they're at ease when they talk to me, and I'm at ease with them, and so perhaps I did write things for the local paper, for the diocesan paper, and they liked it. And said, "Well, we'd like to read. You know, we'd like to hear the story of your life." So I said, "Okay." 2 years ago, after I retired from active ministry, I said, "I'm going to start writing that story." So it took me 2 years to write this book.
So it's basically your story.
It's
this
my
book.
story.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So I always wonder, if you write your biography, Do you go all the way back, or do you go back to
Well, I went all the way back.
right when you were young?
Yeah, because I didn't go to Google and read on Google. How should you begin the story if you're going to write the story? Because you go to Google, after I went to Google and looked after it, whatever you do, don't make it chronological. Don't start when you're a child.
Don't start at the beginning.
And I had already started it. So I said, I'm not going to change it now. But that's right, Google would say, no, no, no. You know, start where you are now and then somewhere go back to the beginning. But I wrote it right from the beginning, right up to the present time. So it spans that area of my life from the time when I was a child.
So is there any particular story in here that when you were writing it, it brought back certain kind of memories and you felt?
Well, the people who read it often remind me that I must have been a bad little character at some times, because one time I was very young when I decided to run away from home, so I put that story in, you know.
Yeah.
And then people who come from big families, they'll say today, oh my gosh, you know, that's what I thought sometimes. I almost run away from home. This is you know, even as a child, when you're in a large family or things aren't going good, so they would identify with that and say, I can see why you thought that way, you know. And then I suppose that at other times when I was in college and I was in a stint in the Army, 4 summers in the Army, and try to decide, because a lot of my buddies, I mean, there were about 10 of us from the college here in the Miramichi, went away to those who trained for officers. And at that time, if you trained for an officer, it was expected that there might be another war. You know, the war had ended, but this was in the 50s and 60s, so, you know, there was always that Canada needed a strong army, so they wanted to make sure they had men who were prepared, you know. And so we were not a big college here in Chatham, the St. Thomas small college, but when we went away, there were approximately 7 of us, perhaps 8 of us, went away to get trained as officers. But 2 of that group made the Army their life. You know, like they'd pay me all summer. I mean, it was hard to get a job here, but I could go in the Army and they'd pay me all summer. And then at the end of 4 years, I could go on to another career or join the Army. So 2 of my buddies joined the Army and made the career, had a very successful career as Army people. So, you know, the Army knew what it was doing. It was good people.
So you said you had a big family, more brothers, more sisters?
No, I came from a small family. We were born at home. We had a midwife next door, and Mom, for some reason, insisted that all her children, you know, were born at home. It was in that age when Canada was still a young country, or considered that, and women were thought they should have their children at home if possible. So 3 of us lived. 2 more of the children died that I knew of. But we were a family of 3 people, children. My brother and my sister and myself comprised.
Did anybody else join the ministry at all? Or were you
No, I was the only one. Although my sister, after she left here and went to the States, she the one that I go to visit, she became worked for the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration. She became a nurse.
Okay.
And so she would work with the FAA, you know, to make sure pilots and the people who worked on those towers, you know, that they were on the ball and
healthy and making sure they were
not something wrong, not drinking or not a dope or something, you know, because they'd say, you can't do that to me, young lady. We report you to Washington tomorrow. You go right ahead, she'd say, because she knew that Washington would always back her up, you know. And said, this man should not be flying today. So she was very strong on that. I think she enjoyed once having the upper hand over men. so she became, so she went on and she became, she took a job of administration with the FAA when they were reorganizing.
Okay.
Do you remember after Reagan was
Yep.
the president, he decided to do away with 15 or 20 different FAA, Force Organization Administration, one in the east, one in the middle, and one in the west. So she was at that time in Denver, and so she had to make her decide if she was going to go west or east. So she went west to Seattle and worked there. But Reagan did that. He cut that administration in the FAA down from 15 or 20 centers to 3 or 4 basic ones. He was very strong that way. He could get it done too.
So is there any, when it comes to your faith and your path or whatever,
Yes.
is there times when you felt weaker than others or strong or tested your faith or wondered about it, especially with all the new things that are out and the way people talk about faith now?
I was very fortunate that way because I had developed a firm faith, in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, and I don't think I ever was moved to ever change that or to lose that. But there were all kinds of times when the churches were changing, when things were changing in the church, and you would say, well, what's going to happen? What's going on? What am I doing here, or what am I doing there? I left here to go over to that little community. It was a small community at that time, Nakawik, because it had a mill and was just opening up, and so they felt they needed a pastor over there. So I went over there, and I did realize somewhat what it was like to be a pastor in a rural area of New Brunswick, how much they relied upon you and looked to you for leadership as regards to what kind of a church are we going to have now? How are we going to arrange with our Protestant brothers and sisters and with the rest of this community to share to make this community grow? So
I always
good
wonder
years.
about those conflicts, like within the church, when you have fear of the pastor, of course.
Yes.
Because the congregation always has their own ideas. There's different sections of the congregations. How do you deal with that, or how do you decide which route to go?
Well, I guess you do make a decision, but I everywhere I went, I tried to make sure that either I had somebody from the congregation or somebody that they had been working, that had been leading the church there before I got there, that they were on a committee and that they would have something to say about what was going to happen in that church. And I would listen to them. I was very, very strong on that, and having a committee and listening to the committee, and especially if some of those people who were leaders were women, because I always felt that, especially in the Catholic Church, that the women didn't have as much say as the men had, and when they spoke, they should be listened to. So I was lucky in that, because I usually had nuns or sisters to work with or work with me, and they could take leadership, and some of them had been very well educated because they were teachers, most of them, and they would often go away and study at different colleges all summer for years, many, many years. They'd go away and they'd learn, and so when they came, they would often know a lot more about what was happening in the church today than I would, because they were at summer school and they were traveling different parts of Canada, the United States. What's happening here and what's happening there, and say, what are we going to do here? So I was very fortunate that way. Everywhere I went, I had sisters or nuns or people working with me, and I let them know that they had as much say in the church as I did.
Well, that's good. You sound like you're a pretty fair guy. So So no real conflicts, nothing where you ever thought, well, this is not going to work out for me and that kind of stuff.
Well, no, I suppose at times I wondered, you know, what I was doing there, and if it would work out what we were planning to do, because sometimes, especially if you're looking at building a church or renewing a church or closing down a church or opening up another one, you know, you'd have your doubts, but usually if you stuck with it, and especially if you were faithful to prayers, you know, that it would always work out. It did for me anyway. I was lucky that way. I never had any drastic setbacks.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, that's great. If you write the book and here, remember, it's going to be at Mill Cove Coffee, so anybody will be able to come down and pick it up anytime.
Yes.
And I know Kathleen's always promoting everything. She'll have a...
She smiles all the time.
I need her as a salesman. She's the best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
No, that's great. And so where do you live now? Do you live
I live in a house.
here in Miramichi?
Here in Miramichi, just
Okay.
almost under the bridge in Chatham.
Okay.
The second house on Wellington Street. It was a house that belonged to Father Broderick, who had been a teacher at the college, and a friend of mine. He came from up in Restigouche, up in a place called Kedgwick, not Keswick, but
Yeah.
Kedgwick, and right at the mouth of the Restigouche River, where the Restigouche is up there and into the headwaters, and his family went up there years ago, took care of the American camp, where the Americans came to the camp there to fish, and so he was born and brought up there, and then he came to teach here at the college in Chatham, and so we were friends. And when he died, he said, "You have first bid on my house, you know, if you want it." And it just happened that year. The year before, I'd retired, and I tried to live at my house in Lower Newcastle, where I was brought up, and I almost froze to death because I didn't realize how cold it was in those houses.
Yeah.
No upstairs heating, we had no electric heat. It was always wood heat.
Yeah.
You know, so even when I went there, I couldn't believe how cold it was, and how hard it was. If the snow came, then we used Dad and myself and my sister. We'd pack a road. We lived about 200 yards off the road, but you just packed a trail going out to the road, and the car will always be at the road. But when I was there, one of those snowstorms came, and I put on snowshoes. I couldn't walk in the snowshoes. We kept going down over your head, and I would put the cross-country skis on. They wouldn't work, and I couldn't work. And here I'd already had one heart attack. So I said, I'm going to have another heart attack if I stay here. So I had to get out of there and move back up into town. So I was fortunate that way, because it was too far off the road and too dangerous
Yeah.
to live alone in an isolated area. So I moved into the house in town, and I've been able to live there ever since. It's a small house, and I have somebody comes in and helps once every second week, and the rest of the time I brew up my own food, which is never very good. Not as good as somebody else cooking for you.
No, that's true.
You always have a tendency to go to the frying pan.
You always. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Frying pan, well, nowadays it's a microwave for me.
Microwave.
I'm a quick microwaver.
Yeah, but but I enjoy living in town. You know, because you can walk everywhere you have to go. Just get up and walk. Great that way.
That's good.
So I still enjoy walking, but I'm not getting any younger now, so I gotta try to stay in some kind of shape.
Well, I thank you
Thanks,
for
Rob.
having an interview with us.
Thank you very
And,
much for doing that.
The book's called The Long Road Home. You can come in anytime down to Mill Cove Coffee. Pick up the book. It's here for sale.
Yeah.
And it was great having you and great having an interview with you. Get it
Thanks,
out on the
Rob.
radio and get everybody talking about it.
Yeah.
Make sure they know. It was, You got some great stories for sure.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Well, thanks again for coming
Thanks,
out.
Rob.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit together. It's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be